right, and welcome back. My guest, he has been a guest on my program before. He was the Republican candidate who ran for election to the U.S. House to represent California's 43rd congressional district. He did lose in the general election to Maxine Waters, possibly my least favorite female representative on Capitol Hill, although the competition is fierce. I dislike so many of them. But Joe Collins III was apparently one of the speakers on Wednesday up at the Capitol. How are you, sir?
I'm doing very well. How about yourself?
I'm good. And of course, I want as many people who were actually there to describe to my listeners what you saw happening in Washington.
So from my perspective, it was a lot of peaceful events, gatherings, and speaking events in D.C. And at the major one, after the president got finished speaking, they marched to the Capitol. After the people marched to the Capitol, I mean, it just turned into chaos like very, very quick. I mean, you would see the cops were pepper spraying people, and they were throwing smoke bombs. They were physically assaulting people. And then they turned around and let people go up to the Capitol. How they got into the Capitol, I have no idea. My team and I left shortly after.
Yeah, because, I mean, the first thing that came to my mind as I was watching the events unfolding on television in live time was, are you serious? They weren't better prepared for the possibility of a breach at the building? I mean, they were there to stop the so-called steal, which was apparently taking place at that moment.
Exactly. And the crazy part about it is, the Capitol building is one of the most secure buildings in the United States. I mean, you have the Homeland Security that are there, you have the federal police that are there, and you have the security from the politicians who are there. So how does a bunch of unarmed individuals actually breach the Capitol and cause that much chaos?
You'd almost think it was that they were allowed to do it.
It seems like it. It seems like it was, because I watched the videos last night, this morning, and you see the police helping them pull down the barriers, telling them to come on, walking them up to the Capitol doors. And then the people, they broke some windows. You see them on a scaffold going up the side of the building. People are climbing the buildings, and that's how they got in. And later on we hear, there were shots fired, and then you hear one person was killed, and now we just found out one of the federal police officers died also. So it was just it was a huge mess, and I don't even know how that happened.
Yeah, and that's really concerning for me because at the time, the Vice President of the United States, who is the second in line should anything happen, was inside that building conducting, and he was listening to people shouting, where's Pence? How does he not have better protection to begin with? Wouldn't the Secret Service have cordoned off the whole building with him in it?
I would think so. I heard they took him to a different, an undisclosed location. So I don't know where Mike Pence was at the time, but the whole event is just appalling. I think what's more crazier than the event is how the mainstream media was reporting it. Oh, it's riots, and Washington, D.C. is up in flames, and the Capitol was burning, and all of that wasn't true. It
Right.
was the furthest thing from true. And then they say, well, these were Trump supporters. It's like, yeah, but, you had Antifa members in there as well. Based on the facial recognition software that they had at the Capitol, and then people taking pictures, and you go to the Antifa.org website, and you'll find the same people who are members of Antifa were dressed up as supporters of President Trump there.
Right. And the bottom line is, I don't care who thought it was a good idea. And while my heart breaks for Ashley Babbitt, being shot, a 14-year veteran, as you're a veteran, so, I have a particular, love for men and women who put their lives on the line that way. So, of course, her death would be horrific no matter what, but it's even compounded by the fact that she served this country. And yet I think to myself, what possessed her to climb through a window into the Capitol building? She's taken an oath to preserve and defend the Constitution, and what was going on in there was totally constitutional, including the objection to the electors.
Exactly. I thought the same thing. I've had conversations with my team about it. They asked me how I felt. And I told them, our sympathy and our hearts go out to the families of Mrs. Babbitt, but at the same time, nobody should have stormed the castle like that. Although I'm not surprised that it happened, and I wouldn't say that it wasn't deserved, because we have to remember, Black Lives Matter and Antifa destroyed entire cities, and none of the Democrats said anything about it. Now, they have to feel the same type of fear that they enticed on the whole entire United States, and now it's all of a sudden it's a problem.
Yeah. Well, and that's why the hypocrisy, and part of my monologue that airs over and over on this station was that who can believe the media anymore when there were riots and literally businesses burned and police stations breached and federal buildings, courthouses breached, and the media was talking about, quoting Martin Luther King and saying, sometimes it takes violence to achieve the ends. And I'm thinking, what's the comparison here? I mean, I'm at least consistent. I condemned the people who did that in Portland and Seattle and Chicago and New York and D.C., and I condemn these people in the same manner. But the media, just different rules apply, and now it's like, okay, everybody has to walk away from Donald Trump if they want to have a political future. How pathetic is that?
Yeah, it's pretty pathetic. It's a lot of hypocrisy, like you said. And but my opinion is this. I think that our politicians need to be afraid of the people. They absolutely need to, because we employed them to do a job, and they haven't done that job in a very long time. So, yes, the people need to put the fear of God into these politicians or force them out of office. That's the only way that we're going to be able to move forward and productively. I hate when I hear Democrats say that, oh, it's time to come together, we need peace, after, this whole 4 years you guys have been completely crapping and disavowing people who support the Republican Party, people who support President Trump, and people who don't believe in the same ideologies as the Democratic Party.
Yeah, exactly. And that's where the blatant hypocrisy is really rankling. I don't know that that things will ever be normal again in this country. I mean, the convenient use of the COVID crisis was capitalized on by politicians on both sides of the aisle. And now they have proven one thing beyond a shadow of a doubt. You can tell people to hide in their houses. You can tell them to lose their identities by covering their faces with masks. You can keep their children out of school, and they'll buy it. They'll do it if you just tell them there's a public health emergency. So what's next? Joe, you have to be as scared as I am. The next thing I hear is a knock on my door when they say, this is the gun buyback program, and you have 2 days in which to turn your weapons over.
Yeah, I don't see that happening anytime soon. Liberals can request your guns, but they don't know how to use guns, and that's one of the best things about being not only a U.S. Navy veteran but conservative. We're all pro 2A. And, what's that old saying? If you want my gun, take it from my cold, dead hands, or something like that. And that's
right.
how I feel about it.
And it's how I feel about it, too. But then we're talking about a legitimate civil war taking place in this country. And that is absolutely frightening. What I have told my listeners, and I mean this with every fiber of my being, I was in this exact same position in 2008 when Barack Obama won the election and the Democrats controlled both houses. And I said to them then, we got to get busy getting people elected. And the Tea Party put 90 new congressmen into Congress and took over the majority. We've got to do that again.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. They're going to take the Republican Party actually supporting candidates who are quality candidates running for office, and they haven't done that in a very long time. I know a lot of Republicans, myself, Kim Klacik, and Mrs. Stanton King in Georgia. We actually funded and ran our own campaigns and worked hard to without the support of the party. So they're going to actually have to have an agenda to reach out into the urban communities and try and find a way to get them to get on board the Republican Party if we want to see a real change in America. Everybody always talks about how many votes in the black community that they got, but at the end of the day, the black community is always left out of any type of positive progress.
And so true. Well, thank you so much for coming on, Joe. And trust me, even if the Republican Party neglects your candidacy in the future, because I presume you're going to run again in 2 years, Are you? Are you?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yes, I am.
So even if they ignore you, the people are not going to ignore you this time. And we did it with the Tea Party revolution. The RNC and the RNCC didn't want to give a dime to congressional Tea Party candidates, and we raised the money ourselves, and we got them elected. Mm-hmm. All colors, all parts of the country, all Republicans. And my plan is to do that again, and you are definitely in the hopper. So